bit late, 9:15, we'll open up our special session. Please silence, shut off your cell phone, let's do the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everybody, and we have some people on the phone. Whoever's on the phone, could you let us know?
No.
Marla from the DA's office.
Good morning, Marla. Good morning, Marla.
Good morning from the sheriff's office.
Good morning, Paul. Good morning, Paul.
Morning.
All right, anybody else on the phone?
Amy from the circuit court.
Good morning. All right.
Morning.
All right, does that get all of us on the phone? All right.
Oh, good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Kevin.
There's
Everybody
some
else getting
feedback.
a lot of feedback.
Yeah, it's a little too close.
Okay, so also those on the line, when you're not speaking, please mute so we don't get the feedback, or we hear something you didn't want us to hear. That has happened quite a bit across the state on calls so far. So for everybody here, several different things, but first, we have formed a committee to put together to go through the phases of open Oregon back up by the direction come down from the governor. And that committee person is James, has been the one sitting on that. He has got things to a draft form already that Mark and I will be looking at this afternoon. We're going to have a special session Monday morning at 7:30 to probably take that out of draft form and submit that to the governor. I want to say thank you to my two commissioners for the hard work both of them putting on into this. They're putting a lot of time into it. We elected James because he can articulate well at putting it in print, and so he has been putting in extra time as Mark has. So that's something you're going to see coming down. We're following the guidelines from the governor's office. We are getting pressure from businesses and everything to get things opened up faster than what we're allowed to help support. What we will do is follow the guidelines to try to make sure that our businesses and everybody stay within compliance. Our heart goes out to the businesses that are shut down. So we're trying to fast track this as much as we can. We get phase one done in 14 days to get to phase two. Some very positive in phase one. I know James is sitting here ready to talk, but really productive meeting he's had with Incident Command for the hospital and ours, with the public health director and our doctors. Very positive. And as we said on calls as Board of Commissioners, I will still say I'll put Lake County against any other county. We just jump out there and go for it. And I want to make sure that people know how hard a couple of our commissioners are working just on that phase one. Other thing is we opened up the courthouse yesterday, 8:30. Thank you to Melanie and to Jay for making that happen. We got a temporary hire done right away. We had 16 people come through yesterday. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we're able to do that. We continue to encourage elected officials and department heads to manage their offices to what works for them. We as a board are not stepping in and saying you have to. We really encourage that if your office isn't manned, that there is somebody available to be able to, the public to get to, because of the public wants to get to your offices. So if you're not going to be manned, make sure that there's a number there and make sure that it's going to be answered. That's the only thing that I'm sort of concerned, but it is your call to allow the public in one at a time if that's your way. Make sure they social distance. It's recommended for them to wear a mask, not much concerns myself or haven't seen anything that didn't go well yesterday. Do you guys, is there any feedback on opening the courthouse? Was there any glitches or problems people seen?
Brad, Paul.
Yes.
So, I had an issue with it because there was virtually no communication with the sheriff's office, regarding the opening. And most of our services are suspended at this time due to the governor's order. There is, virtually, we're not doing any forced evictions for non-payment. Concealed handgun licensing is at a stay. We also operate the jail, which in turn, we've got a lot of foot traffic that typically would frequent the jail. That has all been suspended, and there was no notification to the public that we were not going to just open up for regular business to allow individuals into the jail for visitation. We've been extremely careful with who we're bringing to jail and the screening process, and we are being encouraged statewide that we use site release as to keep the probability of contracting in our facility of the jail or staff. And so I personally had a significant concern with it, but I conferred with the sheriff and we made the decision that our office is still closed. We are still operating. We are still providing services to the public like we always have. But ours is extremely different than some of the other offices in this building. And so that's what's going to work for us is we are closed, and if calls for service are needed, they can contact dispatch 24 hours a day and get service. The other thing that allows us to do is avoid unnecessary contacts with potential folks that if it's a minimal call, it can be handled by a phone call and not a personal presence in a lot of cases.
So Paul,
So
thank you.
that's the take from the sheriff's office.
Okay, appreciate that very much, Paul. First, apologize that you weren't notified, but you did miss an opportunity to sit in the staff meeting when this decision was made. And so I encourage you to make these meetings such as you are today, so you know what the commissioners are deciding and so on. As far as operations of your department there, the sheriff's department, Mike's department, support that. Please put up all kinds of signage that you want the public to know about your operations. Make sure that that is well notified out there, because there is some expectation from the public for just general operations for something, for the window to be open. If you guys are not going to have the window open in that, please get that out. Get that information to Melanie. She puts out information daily on the jig, and that information is what goes out to the public also. So get all those guidelines to us, and we'll make sure that they're put on the information that we send out.
And Commissioner Albertson, actually, I believe he put out some information and shared some of that to make sure that people know what you guys' status is. So, yeah.
Other concerns on opening the courthouse? Okay. I thank everybody that's getting the services out there to the public. We have had a lot of very, very positive comments of people wanting to get services from the county. People compare us to the other businesses and everything that they can just walk into and go do their business. And when they see government shut down, they get frustrated. So I have to tell you, I've had more and more positive comments of the Board of Commissioners being proactive to get services back on.
We're public servants, and I think it's important that we make sure that we're actually serving the public.
Yeah, absolutely. So kudos to everybody that's working so hard, and to your employees, our employees, that's making this happen. I'm proud of them. Thank you very much. On the phase one, I I know you two have been working a lot on it. Do you have more to add?
Gosh, you know, how much time do we have? I'm gonna really try and shore this up with a few of the concerns that I'm kind of seeing so far, which I'm really glad Amy's here today. We need to take into consideration that some of these businesses and different services open, and we start opening things back up, the availability of cleaning supplies and other things to try and make sure that places continue to be sanitized and things, and we have some concerns at our library, making sure things are okay. Amy, do you have anything you wanna speak to on that at all?
No, we're just trying to make our plan align with your plan and the governor's plan,
Right.
so that we can, I'm sure we're gonna move back and forth among phases over the next year or so would be my guess. So we wanna make sure we have a good process for deciding what level of service the library is offering in each different situation, and part of it is making sure that we have enough cleaning supplies to be able to disinfect regularly
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a very good point, and the restaurants, were talking to me about that as well. I apologize, I hadn't been able to respond to your email yet, but it did bring some thoughts to solidify my mind, and unfortunately, a lot of times we don't have answers for a lot of these things and a solution. Again, the executive order is not ours, and we're trying to find a way through it and trying to comply with criteria that is changing every day. And that was part of our phone call this morning, was we're hearing that some of that criteria that we're going to need to meet is going to change again at the end of today and possibly over the next few days. And we've actually been advised by some of those at the governor's office that if that happens, we're going to have some other criteria or some other things that we need to include, and as far as information for our businesses as to how they can operate. And so, as you can imagine, this can be extremely frustrating, and to work through to try and present an actual plan so that there is clarity for our public once we get into phase one. When we're trying to present the plan as to how we're going to move forward, but the criteria we have to meet in order to even be accepted for phase one is changing every day, it can make the job very difficult. And I think we're all sort of kind of at the, at wit's end at times. And I think our commissioners across the entire state are feeling those same frustrations. And mostly just, we're expected to have an answer. And the fact is that most of the time on these issues in particular, we don't have the answers that I think the public would like to see. So I'm just putting that out there so that our public can be cognizant of that. We're working very hard to get the answers to everything. So anyway, that's kind of really all I have on that topic.
It's really hard to have those answers and hold back your own personal opinions.
Oh,
We struggle
Yes.
because we have some very strong personal opinions, but
not
we
not
have,
Mark, not Mark.
we have to, for the good of the people that we serve, just follow the guidelines and get this done, you know?
Right.
And it's just a challenge for each commissioner across the state and this board of commissioners to not bring our personal opinions into it.
Mhm.
Because if they don't fit the guidelines always.
And especially when we get elected to share our personal opinions on things. So,
So can I make a couple comments,
Absolutely.
Commissioner?
Okay.
So just to kind of give everybody an overview of how this is working, is there's 3 phases handed down by the president. The governor right now is using those reopening plans, but she made it clear that things may be added and changed. And so it's very fluid, like we've talked about since this started, things change. What we're trying to do is you have to get through phase 1 to get to phase 2 to get to phase 3, which is the total reopening of everything. And there's certain requirements that have to be met in each phase. One of the things is that, especially for businesses, is that you might not be open on phase 1. You might not be open on phase 2.
And so we're pushing as hard as we can to get everybody open and churches and everybody, so we can come to some form of a normal life again. But, so we have to compile all this data and answer all the questions in phase 1 to move to phase 2. One of the,
To get approved to move to these.
yeah,
Right.
first we gotta get phase 1 approved. And,
The gating criteria.
and then that opens it, it's kind of like cracking the door open a little at a time. If we start getting an influx of COVID cases, that changes everything. And so that's why it's important to me to continue on using our social distancing, wear masks if possible. If you're over 70 years old, to continue to shelter in place as much as possible, even if you're not. Or, because if we get an influx of cases, what might have been phase 2 in 14 days, maybe not even open in phase 1. And so it's very important for our whole community and our businesses that we continue working hard to keep this at bay and collect all the data that we can collect and forward it on to the governor on how things are working. And so everybody's got a role to play in this. So
Something that came across very strong here lately is I shouldn't use this word, but I go into the misconception on COVID-19. It's not a death sentence. And in Deschutes County and in Klamath County, their hospitals have not been overwhelmed at all with the cases they've had. So whenever it does come here, and we do get it here, we gotta be sure and look at it realistically. Most of the deaths have been with underlying circumstances. And there's a lot of theories, and they're starting to come true, that it has come through earlier than thought, and it really was being tracked. So we want to, and it will be here, and we have to not, as a community, panic whenever it comes, because it will be here, if it hasn't already been here. So on the conference calls, it's been pretty interesting listening to the commissioners from Klamath County and Deschutes County. Klamath isn't on our normal calls, but Deschutes is. They've almost went from almost a fear factor trying to get things shut down. Is this, oh my gosh, we've had lots of cases here and our hospital is not overwhelmed. And we haven't had a huge amount of deaths. We haven't even had a death in Deschutes County. So that's where it comes in. We all have an opinion. This board, we have an opinion, but we have to also bring that forward to the public of our sister counties, that the impact on those hospitals has not been extreme as what the other commissioners are telling us. And am I articulating that?
In terms of cases, yes.
well, and there's some other facts that we gotta take in consideration. One is that even though we went over the 2,000 mark on COVID cases, 2,106, I think.
In Oregon.
In Oregon.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there's 2,106 people with the virus, because they're not putting, and I brought this up in a conversation with the governor, they're not putting in the recovery data. And so there's less than half of that people that still have that. And,
Like
and so,
one third of Klamath's cases are even still active.
yeah, and in
And no one is
Deschutes
in
County and in Klamath County, where they have cases, there's 0 people in the hospital with COVID. So,
My son-in-law is an ICU nurse at Providence in Portland, which is the largest ICU in the state. They have 200 ventilators, and they cleared their schedule for this big mass of people coming in. They peaked out at 47 last night they had 3 people in the hospital with it. And so that they're experiencing what you're describing. It's not turned out to be what they were afraid it was going to be.
I think for us, we're wanting to follow the direction and the concerns of our medical staff, who still have concerns, I think, that there may be, there's still yet some to come. So we wanna be cautious in that approach, but I think my board, and we all just wanna make sure that we instill a sense of hope in the community that we will get a case. We know we will, if we haven't already. And quoting the chair, that we want people to remain calm, even when that does happen. And we've even had special consideration from the governor's office to consider counties like Lake that has had 0 confirmed cases, that when we do get that one case, that will put us to 100% more than we had before. So when they're gauging counties, that they're not gauging them on percentages, because obviously in a county that has had 0 cases, we've done a great job in social distancing, a great job in keeping our community safe, and our long-term living and everything else. We've done a really good job in that respect, and we just want people to know that when we get that one case, or 2 or 3, we're gonna be able to manage it. Our doctors feel like they can manage it. They believe that we will be all right, and I think that we will. And I want people to just remain hopeful that when that case happens, not to panic, not to fear, oh my gosh, it's here, we know it's here. It's a question of making sure that we are able to preserve life, and that our medical staff have all the tools that they need at their disposal. And that's all this plan is about. We've done everything in our power to make sure that our community and our county is prepared. And I will say this, I believe Lake County is better prepared than almost any county in the state. We have done a fantastic job.
And he's not jiving you on that, because we hear from the other counties, so we know where everybody else is. And like James says, you know, the main thing is to preserve life, but you have to preserve life not only in the health factor, but in the business factor. And so we're doing this balancing act to make sure everyone is
And that the negative health impacts to our society due to the economy are not severe enough to where they hurt people. We're just taking all these things into consideration.
So we're very entrenched in this, obviously, and very passionate about trying to get through this as a governing body. Is there any questions on that before I go to some updates? Or yes, go ahead.
So I just have a question about like timing from the governor's office on the final plan and criteria. Like if you have anything you can share that's not out there on the web to help me move through my plan.
Okay. Today I'm passing off what Daniel Tagg and I have accomplished on the plan so far. I'm going to hand it off to my fellow commissioners and allow them to go over that draft.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're able to work on that over the weekend and try and find a way to incorporate all the rest of our concerns and put some fresh eyes on it, so to speak, we will then, we need to approve it at some point, possibly on Monday. 7:30 in the morning is when we're probably going to have that meeting to look at it and approve it. And then we'll probably have a follow-up support letter from our public health director. And then of course, the CEO at the hospital will guarantee that the PPE supply is sufficient for Lake County to enter phase 1, and at which point that goes to the governor's office. And hopefully by May 1st, we will see a decision from the state.
So, and we're anticipating some different criteria in phase 1, but
Right.
I believe this board is absolutely wanting to get ours in and amended if there is other criteria. Just to get right in, you know, I've heard on the call this morning, one board of commissioners can't even get their board together till the 29th, and it's like, we will do it in 15 minutes if we
We'll
have
do it
to.
on the weekend, anytime,
And so,
24/7.
so, our our intent is to have this ready and sent in on Monday. And if it has to be amended, and we'll probably note that on there, that this fits all the criteria. If there's other criteria come down, we will aggressively amend this to fit that criteria.
Well, and the thing is that it will be amended.
Yeah.
It will probably be amended several times.
Several
yeah.
times.
And as we get clean information from the governor, that's gonna be added to the plan. And
Right.
so it's fluid. And
Yeah.
so
I can say this, because my fellow commissioners haven't actually been able to see the full draft yet. I can tell you that no matter what, this is me speaking, no matter what criteria comes down from the governor, I can guarantee you, based on what we have and the close network that we have now with our IC and our medical staff and everything, we will have answers to every question and any criteria that the governor hand down. And so any of those things will be able to be solved.
I just got a quick point of order. It's 9:30. I'm going to open up an emergency session based around the need to get agreement in place on the ASA transition. And we will be working on that after this meeting. I'm going to basically have two meetings open. We're going to continue the emergency meeting after this one's closed, but it's open.
Okay, thank you so much, I appreciate that.
Okay, so back to our special session. Any other questions on reopening orders? With that.
Half
did-
hour
so
of
did we
politicians
answer your
talking.
question?
Yeah.
I think so, just one point of clarification is that the most recent presentation from the governor's office I saw had indicated they plan to have the final plan and criteria the week of May 4th from the governor's side. Is that timeline still the same?
I was unaware that she was planning on.
Well, it was on that presentation from last time, one of the last
Okay.
slides was like next steps and it had a couple pieces for the week of May 4th, and I didn't know if they were still on track for that.
I know May 4th was one of the dates that they were talking about, allowing some of the counties to open. But again, they were looking at regional, some counties will not be able to open by May 1st.
Right,
Some counties will not be able to get there. But we believe we will,
okay.
in which we don't
We're gonna be
believe
there
that.
by Monday.
Yeah.
And then when she has other stuff to add, we'll add it.
Okay.
That's
Well-
what,
Well, one of the things that's fluid on this is that the governor's office is getting hit with rural communities, and I will use a fitness center. We're able to, our business in the fitness center, not us, is able to adjust to this different than the
Right.
fitness center down in Portland.
Yeah.
So it's being fluid because the governor's getting hit with these businesses and saying, I can follow this distance and I can put another person on and I can monitor this.
Right.
So the governor's office has acknowledged that low population areas are going to have a little bit different criteria possibly. She hasn't put that in writing or anything, but she also acknowledged exactly what James was saying is she's aware that these rural communities have zero. And when we get one, she says that is not going to force her to say, you're shut down immediately. Now, she said that in the meeting we were in, so, we were very thankful.
That's not in writing.
It's not, but we're gonna darn sure bring that forward.
Sorry, James. I tried
Thank
to
you,
hold
sir,
back.
I appreciate
So-
it.
So anyways,
Just great.
I guess I needed to articulate that, the governor's office and staff is listening to us whenever we're saying our businesses are unique here. And that we're able to do certain things different, so, she's tasked with putting out some criteria that sort of try to make it regionally fit, and we're saying, no, we need to have for our area, so. Did I capture that
I
correct?
think so, and we have good senators and representatives that are all working really hard to make sure that Lake County has a voice in it, and representation in the Capitol. It's been, and this is in the governor's defense, I think everyone on the governor's staff has been hit pretty hard by all this, and everyone's short of sleep. And so I just wanna put that out there, trying to find answers and trying to make sure that we're all doing the right thing can be an extremely taxing process. when it's continually ongoing with very little light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to make sure that our businesses have that light at the end of the tunnel.
And see, the thing is that nobody has faced a world pandemic before.
Right.
And so nobody's seasoned veteran in this.
Yeah, and we,
You know?
emergency management doesn't even drill for it because it's a no-win scenario. And we're just, it's all hands on deck. We're just gonna work through it and take every day, one day at a time. And so,
Two other things I wanna mention, AOC, if your department or anything works with AOC, they seem to be stepping up quite a bit. Stay in contact with them, they're a strong lobbying group for us. They're going to be compiling these, plans as they go together, they're a tool. The other thing, and this it's sort of close to me, is we did hear on the call from Representative Owens this morning, is that the regional forester is given some authority to the local ranger / possibly the forest supervisor to open up the forest within the guidelines. And so I asked for that in writing because of,
yes, you did.
because of, I've always thought and believe that here locally, they know the numbers and the amount of people that go into those recreation areas and should be able to socially distance and self-sanitize and keep those open. So that's sort of near and dear to me, my passion to be able to use our public land. So those are a couple of things I wanted to mention also. Did we miss anything that the public sort of likes to know about in the fall, other than those?
No, I think they've heard enough of the politicians for a little while.
Okay, so don't put Rodney on the spot. There's been a lot of talk about fairs across their calls. There's a lot of people upset. Other people are glad that it's not happening because they're worried about too many people in one place. So I know you're having meetings quite often.
Yeah, the OFA's meetings, our conference calls are up to about 70 right now of the fairs and people associated and service providers and carnivals. And so we have it every Thursday morning. So it was kind of interesting. Curry County has canceled their fair and theirs is the end of July, 1st of August. Eastern Oregon, a lot of stock shows have been canceled. We're kind of in that 3-state pack with California and Washington, something along those lines. And California, it was brought up at the meeting yesterday, had said that they're not even going to consider any mass gatherings until 9/1, which doesn't necessarily apply to us, but still, that's kind of interesting. The Yoncalla rodeo's canceled. A lot of the pro rodeos are canceled. Multnomah Fair canceled theirs. The state 4-H lady, Marilyn Lestmeister, was on the call with us, and basically all she had to say was that there's still 4-H is still mandated no face-to-face contact through June 30th for any of their programs, and they're sticking with that until the governor says different, evidently. I did a kind of a survey, an email survey of all the fairgrounds who did 4th of July stuff, and a lot of them have canceled. A couple of them are going ahead with their show, which is kind of what I wanted to do with the fireworks part of it. But they're locking their gates and not, I was thinking, oh, they could come in their rigs and watch it from their rigs on the parking lot. But some of them are saying no, because if you let them on your property, then you're the one who's liable or something like that. So that was kind of a new thing I didn't think about. So I was gonna talk to our board, fair board, and get opinions on that one. Most fairs have a cutoff date as of June 1 on when they're going to decide about their fairs. The ones that are in July and midway through August. The other ones, we're talking about a July 1 date. The smaller ones, because they can still get their stuff put together. Some of the larger ones wouldn't be able to. So that was interesting. We had the same presentation from Courtney Warner, the phasing deal from the governor's office yesterday. And I talked to her a couple times because as she's going through the phases, She has it, the second phase was gatherings no larger than 50, and then phase 3 jumps to unlimited. Well, I said, isn't there gonna be a 250 step in there? Cause that's how it came down. I mean, it's a big difference. And she said, oh, she couldn't imagine it going straight to unlimited after a max of 50 event. So I'm anticipating there's gonna be another step in there at the 250. She got a whole lot of input yesterday from all carnivals to vendors to fairground people. And one of those was the difference between outdoor events and, enclosed, well, not enclosed, like how we would do the concert or the rodeo part of the fair. Some of those wouldn't be able to do that max 250. That would be out of the question, but that would only be inside concerts and stuff like that have a different, they can be controlled differently than outdoor fairs, some of the fairs. Some of the fairs can do the social distancing or put it out there and have a better, not so, close contact thing. Anyway, so that was kind of a real interesting thing for me, because then we were kind of doing the numbers, and it kind of makes it even if we were approved for phase 1 by like May 15th or something, and we have no cases, and we, all the other little criteria, there's not, decisions couldn't be made. I mean, that takes us after July 4th for one, but would we still have enough time to put on the fair? And that's what the fairs are talking about right now, because some of it, especially the really big ones. So
two things on the call this morning with Representative Owens. I have a lot of respect for him, but
yeah.
Two things was, and Judge Reynolds in Harney County, is people aren't signing contracts right now.
Exactly.
And so that's a challenge for fairgrounds. But one of the most interesting things I heard, and it's not the fair board, it would be the sales committee, but Mark Owens and them, they said, what if the sales committee or whoever it's ran by here went around and figured out how many beef, how many sheep, how many turkeys all the way, and had basically a flooring price and go try to get people to contribute to that so the kids have a chance to sell. They would all basically get the same price, but it would give the opportunity if the fair shut down. Not the fair board's call, but I thought that was very creative thinking for the kids to still have that ownership and still be able to sell their animals. I just thought it was.
There's a number of them, but that are their plan B once they figure it out by July sometime. Their plan B is to do video sales for their kids.
Question for Ronnie here. Do we have a deadline of when a decision needs to be made?
Well, I haven't talked to the fair board about it yet.
I'm the commissioner on the fair board.
Yeah.
But there's 4 other people.
Yeah, but it's kind of what I think will be the topic of our next meeting. It will be on there.
And that's the first Tuesday of May, and press is welcome.
So I think on that subject is you have our own phases.
Right.
If this works out, we're gonna, have fair as usual. It's kind of hard because it's a pro rodeo now. And then you have the vendors, the carnivals and all that. So my thought would be to do plan B, plan C, how things happen.
We normally have our contract signed for all of our food vendors.
Right.
In how, bless you, and the carnival and then you got the roundup side of it. And they have all their corporate sponsors and all their things to do.
Yeah, and
the
they
fair board
haven't gone
doesn't
out for
do.
sponsors yet. I just read their minutes that came out from their April meeting and, or their email meeting, I guess I should say. And they were talking about their concert contract, and if they would be able to get out of that, and so they're thinking overall of a date of mid-July to finally figure out what they can do, because that's the last date that they can go into contracts.
So I see Dave Knowles behind it. Finally, the chance for the Roundup to do a concert in the park at the ski hill, and everybody said, I've loved this idea for years, and everybody just spread out, social distancing, bring their own
Yeah.
water to drink, and maybe it's an opportunity for that to finally happen. I've talked about it for years. Maybe the Roundup is going to have their concert at the ski hill this year. Sorry. May work. Do you have others, or is any other questions, Ronnie?
Nope, I think that's kind of it. Was the meeting yesterday and where it's kind of be lefting it. Some of the carnivals are, you know, how they set up their dates so that they have a route, so it saves them money on fuel and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so a number of them have had to, the larger fairs that are canceling the carnival, it's affecting the smaller fairs because they're on the route. And so the carnivals are saying it's not cost effective to go over to your fair. So that's something that they're running into also. And it might be the same here with the carnival.
So 4th of July, I would say that it will probably just be fireworks.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, I am gonna have a food trailer.
Gotta have fireworks, I'm just saying.
Huh?
You can't go without fireworks.
That's right,
You have
that's
to.
right, that's what I was
You know,
thinking.
guys, I'm gonna say it.
Don't say it, Mark.
This is
Say it.
on the point of being ridiculous. You're starting to mess with my liberty. And
We're doing the fireworks, it's okay.
So I knew I would spark something like that. So on the fireworks,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you don't find the funding, I would encourage you to look at the Board of Commissioners and see if there's lottery video dollars. We always contribute to both North
Right.
and South Lake for 4th of July celebration. This year may be the year that we might have to contribute more because it is our liberty and we do need those fireworks to go off.
They've called me, they're not sure if they're still iffy about whether they're gonna have one because they have to purchase their fireworks so far in advance because they're a level up. And they also can't store them for a year if they end up not doing it. So they're going through this whole financial part of it.
Well, I'm sure
And I
that-
suggested go down a level.
I don't wanna get into a Board of Commissioners
Right.
separate meeting, but I'm sure we're open to,
Yeah. I've already put in a request.
Is that, any questions of Ronnie? I wanna go to the phone. Is there anybody on the phone that needs to give an update? Total silence or else you're still on mute.
Commissioners, this is Paul again.
Yes,
I just wanted to get a clarification that I've been hearing in the community, and I wanted you guys to clarify. So the community, wherever this source is coming from, I'm not known, but apparently they're convinced that there's been an agreement with Oregon, Washington, California, that none of the three will open without the others following. And is that indeed true? And if so, how is that going to impact our agenda of phased opening if that is indeed true?
Take it, James.
so I don't think it's a fact yet, Paul.
Yeah.
And
I think there were comments made in press conferences and things that I've been unable to substantiate that. I think we were all hearing the same claim, and we were trying to better understand exactly what that all meant. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's causing fear in our community that we should clarify, just because if California has 1 million cases when this is all said and done and they're closed down, and we still don't have it positive in Lake County, our businesses are going to be shut down if that isn't true the case. And so
Right.
I would just like to know what we can provide to the community and tell them that we're working towards this, but if they're getting media reports stating that we can't open because the other states haven't came along, it could be counterproductive.
Well, I agree with that. Kevin, you have a question?
No, actually, I have a comment. for Paul some clarification. Washington and California are now considering following the regional reopening route, like Oregon. Northern California counties are now petitioning Governor Newsom to follow Oregon's route, and Governor Inslee is now following Governor Brown's route, to making a plan for regional reopening. So it sounds like all the governors for the 3 states here are now considering regional reopening, and they're on different processes of how far along they are.
So again, I think a lot of this is still fluid, Paul. I think earlier on there was a pact between the 3 states on the West Coast, and they were looking at not opening until the other ones were ready to. And I think that was kind of something that they were considering. It wasn't necessarily a set policy, but now that they're reevaluating exactly, the regional plan, I think that's gonna look different. And that's why we're still gonna keep moving forward with what it actually looks like in Lake County and with taking into consideration our neighboring counties. But we're just gonna keep moving forward from here. So if any of the public or the community have concerns, they're more than welcome to get a hold of us or talk, and we'll definitely try and delve into that.
Well, and get those concerns to the governor's office.
Right, yeah.
Get those concerns to the governors. We have those concerns, and we talk about it with our state reps and with the governor's staff. Public has the ability to get responses or get things out to the governor's staff and the governor's side. I don't have the right one to get to right now off the top of my head, but encourage people to send letters to the governor.
I think a lot of this confusion was shared by the senators and representatives. I think this was several weeks ago when this first came out, when it sounded like there was going to be this pact between the 3 states, and neither one was going to open until the other ones were ready. But and essentially our senators and representatives were looking at each other trying to figure out, so what does that mean for us? Basically anything we do doesn't really matter. It's only contingent on whether or not Washington and California are ready to open. And I think that's why you're seeing this push from the northern counties in California, because they're not seeing the same cases. But anyway,
and get those concerns to the state senator and state rep.
Yeah, write your senator, write your representative. Yeah, absolutely.
So, my
Did
thought
I hear
too,
you correctly? That you're promoting the state of Jefferson?
What did Paul? All right, Paul, your evaluation's gonna be coming up.
so yes.
Gosh.
Been trying to lighten it up a little.
So, Paul, on a more serious note, that's why we're so intent on getting all the right documentation in our phase work. Because if she has us meet certain criteria and we meet all that criteria, it's gonna be a lot harder for her to not let us reopen when we've met every criteria on each phase. And so she's going to have to be able to reopen or not reopen based on that information.
Right.
And if she doesn't reopen when we have everything completed, that's a whole different story that I won't talk about in a public meeting.
Well, we have to remember that the reopening in Oregon was stimulated from the president down, and it's going forward.
Correct.
From that. It is
Correct.
Trump came down from there, our governor's implementing the phased approach, and we're getting there. So, we do need to follow the guidelines, get the criteria out there, get it done, and then we'll take on the battles if things don't happen.
Yeah, most of the criteria is centered around whether or not we're seeing a downward trend, which is, for Lake County, it's pretty easy. We haven't had a case. And it's also centered around whether or not we're prepared. I think we are. And I think our committee felt that we are. I think our doctors all feel that we are. And so we're just gonna keep moving forward, and
That's part of the criteria is for that to be signed off by the healthcare.
correct.
Anybody else on the phone have any updates or questions? There Seeing none, anybody in the audience want to do an update or concern or positive or anything? So with that, thank you. And please, all department heads and elected officials, relay this information to your employees. I think we're missing some communication at different levels of getting it to our employees. What these meetings and what we talk about, and you don't have to articulate all of our political jargon here, but just let the employees know how much we appreciate them and how much we appreciate keeping services going. We hear that quite often from the public, and we need to get that down to our employees. Stacy, people are very happy that the clerk's office through all this has been able to keep going. I mean, that's a component that people don't realize on deeds and selling of houses and things, death certificates and on that happen. Thank you, and thank your employee, and we appreciate that, the public appreciates that, you know. And I can talk about every department that way, but I singled you out because that happened. Dave, you know, I hand delivered into your office the other day before we opened, and people are appreciative that the assessor's office is still going. So right on down, and I could say something about everyone. Let your employees know.
Nice work, Stacy.
Any other?
Especially Stacy, you're on the bottom of the list. Stacy's on the top. Just saying. Your employees are on the top, you're just on the bottom.
I can see you have an opportunity to keep your job in a phased approach.
This is phase one, Jake.
So how do you read nothing else?
I'm going. Thank you so much for your support, Stacy.
Thank you. We're going to adjourn the special session at 2 minutes to 10. We're going to continue with emergency.
Can I step out for a moment? I'd like to.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to come back to me.